I want to say I've been to this space as a citizen. I've been in the audience and heard many great friends speak here. So I'm thrilled for the first time that I'm able to talk to all of you. I want to thank Canon as well. Eric's here from Canon, and Canon has been one of the sponsors of Look 3 Festival that I'm the director of since its inception, and is very involved in bringing people together to have a dialogue, to be inspired, to be informed. So I appreciate that, and I just want to add that my first camera that was like beyond the Polaroid Swinger and all the great things that we had, my first really serious camera as I was going off to school was a Canon FTB. Then I stepped up to the AE1, and I'm a G11 user now, which I adore. But I have to share with you one of the fun meetings that we had. I was able to go out to the Canon headquarters with Eric, and he took me to the Canon Museum, where there were all, I mean, just incredible to look at the history of all the cameras, and there was my FPV on the wall, which I just love. So I thank you for inviting me to be here on your behalf as well. So I want to talk today about all of you getting your work not just done, but actually out there. So one of the things that I always like to challenge photographers with is thinking about what do you need to actually finish your projects? What, any of you want to contribute to that? What do you need to really finish your project? Anybody? Time? Time's a very important element. Time, sometimes that means money to get that out. Pardon me? So you need to have time to work and make more pictures to finish your project. Pardon me? A buyer, so money. So money's coming into all of this. But I want to remind you that for you, sir, with making more pictures, maybe it has to do with equipment as well. For some of you, time might be that grant, but some of you might be that a hotel room in the place that you want to go to, or rental cars, or equipment, you know, all those other pieces. So don't just think it's just money that you need to finish your work, because it may be that there's other elements to making your work, could be access, could be all kinds of things, that don't necessarily translate just to dollars. There's lots of different ways that we can find help in all of that. So one of the most important things that I think drives us to do what we do is that we're doing things that are important to us, important to the community that we're photographing perhaps, important because we want to share information. So I love this TED Talk by a great graphic designer called Stefan Sagmeister. How many of you watch TED Talks? I hope you're all clued in. It's great learning goes on at TED. And this talk that he does called 7 Rules for Making More Happiness, number 4 in his path of his own life is working on projects that matter to him, to me, he says. And I think that is why many of us get up in the morning, because there's things that we care about, we want to get done, people that we care for, whatever the case may be, but it comes from within. So I want all of you, I hope all of you have a chance to work on things that really matter to you. So I want to remind you also that every single part of your art making process is something that you can find support for. It's also things that can be part of your tax write-off. I'm not going to be your accountant right now, but I just want to remind you that that's part of the landscape of things. So it could be your research, your materials, your travel, your art making, of course, artist residencies that might support it, presentation materials, all these different things you could find support for. Might be donations of materials, might be grants that we'll go over, exhibition support, publication support, the whole pathway of yours as a creative person are points of access for you for support. So I wanted to step back and think about that creative process and what, to me, a creative practice looks like, okay? So when I sit at the review tables for PhotoFest or at PhotoPlus Expo and many of the portfolio reviews that some of you have been to, people always say to me when I say, what are you working on? Where are you at with your work? They say, well, I'm making new work and then I'm going to market it. And the way I did my drawing is there's quite a ways in between the two, because there's a lot that has to happen in between. So before you do the making work and marketing it, and then you're going to start all over again, I want to go through this a little bit more slowly and just kind of take apart the way I think of a creative practice in today's world. So the research part is huge. And it's a lot of, I have to say, a lot of people skip through that a little quicker than I think you might. Because as you get further along in that body of work, it may be that some of those seeds that you went over quickly, other people that might be interested in it, people that photographed there before, access through colleagues, you never know. But if you rush that research part, you may be shortchanging the actual reach, if you will, of the project overall. So take some time with that. Then, after you've made the work, now we're really beginning a whole giant leap ahead. Once you've got the work made, in other words, you've realized your ideas, you've gotten your access, you've focused on making that work, then you'll begin to think about getting the work out. So I hope you'll think about the presentation materials, but not just thinking about them, researching the different ways that that might be most effective. That means testing. Not just paper, it might be the font, the design, the path. It's going to be electronic, it's going to be paper, all of those things. But that's what happens when you start to get the work made and then print those pieces and get them out. Then you have something tangible. You're ready to actually go show people something. Whether it's a portfolio review or a magazine or a gallery or an art center, but you've got something tangible to go out there with. When you have those in your hand, that place where you now have to think about who's the audience for this work, that is huge and one of the most challenging places to be, because when you nail that, then you're going to dive into that audience, and it's going to take you down a path that I hope is on target. And if you're on target with that reach of who's your audience, who's the most likely community to really be impacted by that work, and embrace it, whether that means that it's a magazine that's going to publish a portfolio, or it's your local art center that's not only going to have a show but want you to come in and do a workshop for kids as well. And whatever that reach is, I want you to not make too many mistakes on those paths because they're time consuming. So if you really can drill down to who the audience is for your work, the space from there to getting it out there is much quicker. Along with that, and this is another really important piece of it that doesn't get talked about much, is what I say is define the language of your project. What's the vocabulary of the people that you've just identified as targeted? People that are likely to be inspired by your work or able to do something with it that will bring it out to the world. How do they talk about photography? If your work is about youth at risk, it's going to be a very different vocabulary than a body of work that's very conceptual and abstract. Those are very extreme examples. But I hope that helps you understand what I mean about the differences between the vocabulary of the audiences. And I see so often people taking a body of work out to a particular audience and they're really not connecting. They're not speaking, we have this sort of metaphor of you're not speaking the same language. Well, they're not connecting on that level about what the work's really about. And so that might be you starting to write about the work and getting a sense if that's the right piece of it. I think when we can look at people's websites, again, whether it's a museum or an art center or a graphic design firm or whomever, when you can read someone's website, and I don't mean look at a website, I mean read a website, you're getting to sit in on a conversation they're having with their audience, whether it's you or not. So if you want to find someone to buy the work, to help you fund the work, and they're a corporate art consulting firm, and you've never been inside one before, when you look at the website, they're going to speak in language like hospitality, which is something we don't normally talk about, but they're talking about selling artwork to hotels and restaurants. So you need to listen in on a conversation someone's happening. I'll reference that concept later as well. But that's what I mean by really not just understanding the audience and researching the right community that will be responsive and make a difference for you, but also really stop and make sure you understand how they communicate to their audience. They're going to need to be your advocate, in other words, and you've got to speak the same language. So from there, you're testing materials again. Now that you've nailed all that down, you send it out in a way that's graphically appealing to that community. If they do everything online, it may not be wise to invest in a paper promotion piece for it. The other way as well, most museum people, they're in the business of paper. Have objects that they're in their custodianship of. So think about that audience and how they will work with materials. Then you begin the whole cycle again with your new project, and you're making new work and start all over again. So can some of you nail down where you are in this process? Anybody? So where are you guys? Where are you in this? At the end, the beginning of the work. Beginning of the work. That's a really exciting place to be. This gentleman just contributed that he, as far as the whole thing, even with the same project, going back to the research, which I was implying a little bit earlier, that take time with that piece, that research piece, and come back to it if one needs, and rethink maybe the delivery or the format. But I sometimes hear in a room of this size as well that people are working on a couple of different projects at the same time. We know that happens. We know it might have to do with access, or you're working on something that's seasonal, and then it's just a matter of trying to stay uber organized and really be together about all of that. But when I think of all of you and what a creative practice is and all these different pieces that we need to harness, this is the way I like to think of all of you working. So when we start to think about getting your projects funded, these to me are the three most important questions to really ask yourself, because you have to own it, you have to believe it. What is the subject of your work? And I don't mean in 12 paragraphs, but nail it. What's the subject of your work? Why is it important to you? Why is it important to others? And then what's your path to getting that work out? What's the final presentation format, for example? It's the classic elevator speech that I want you to have with yourself, so you can own that dialogue about what it is you're working on, what it's about, who you hope it impacts. You hope that it will be a book one day. You hope it will be an exhibition one day. What form, in other words, will it take? Because that may be the element that connects for some people. Oh, it will be a show. I happen to have an exhibition space or something like that. So those things will help you as you enter into your fundraising process. Then, what do you need? What do you really need to finish the work? And that's where I hope when you actually harness that, you'll see that it's not necessarily all cash, that it could be what we'll talk about later, which is an in-kind donation. So with fundraising money, there's two very important groups of people that will help you with your projects. There's the group of people that are interested in you, they love you, they support anything you do, they're fans of your work, or they may know you personally, but it's really about you and your work. That pot of money comes typically from friends and family, of course, but it also can come from any of the grants that ask you to submit your work. Could be a state grant, could be a national grant, could be asking friends that own a frame shop that know you're their customer, would they give you a discount on frames for a show? It's all about you and your work at that level, okay? So the flip side of that is who's really interested in your project. They may not know you from a hole in the ground, but you share this common thing you both have passion for. And that pot of money is much bigger. This pot of money that people are interested in you and your work, and you're applying for those grants, understand that everyone in this room is going to apply for the same grants. And I hope you do. Every time you write a grant, it helps you to know your project more, it helps you know your budget more, it helps the jurors to know you better, because that's how we see work, is by you entering things, or one of the paths. But you're all going to apply, and you should all be applying for those. This pot of money, the people that are interested in the project, is a different beast. So again, when seeking support for you, comes from your fan base, essentially, and people that are supporting your subject come from a place of common passion about the work. Subject, series, whatever it is that you're working on. The people that are interested in your subject really could be total strangers, but you share that passion for that thing that you all do. So the grants for you and your reputation as an artist, based on you and your work might be something like this. A photographer named Julie Dermansky was having a show at the Ogden Museum, one of my favorites in New Orleans. And she was able to get Lopro to sponsor it. She partnered with a camera store for processing. I had a frame shop involved. In other words, she went to her people that she knew well. She was a customer of their businesses and partnered with them. They partnered with some of their clients as well to make this happen. Very often you go in an exhibition and you'll see those kinds of credits given, which is important. The highest extreme of that is something like the Guggenheim Award, where it's truly celebrating you and your work. You have to have 4 people that nominate you, and are willing to write about your work. They're passionate as well about that, and they go out on a limb and they say, I support this project. Again, people that know you and your work. That's the full gamut there. Support for your subject is a completely different beast. So David Rockine has a personal project that he has a website for called the TB Epidemic. And he says, my education project on TB was funded by a combination of media, development organizations, and foundations, which funded the website, the exhibits, and all the trips to make the work. They were interested in TB, in other words. Arthur Drucker has a beautiful book project called Lost Worlds. And Arthur reached out, as he says, to tourism boards from various Caribbean countries, provided me with hotel, car, driver, and a guide to make the work. Why would they want to fund that? Well, of course, they want their country to be included. So when he reached out and said, I'm interested in this in your country, and I'm doing a project about it, is there any support you can give us? They were thinking, we got to be in that book. So they gave him extraordinary support. So it might have not have been something that you were thinking that you need, but this is a great example of the car, the driver, the hotel rooms, etc. Perfect. Perfect. Elliot Dudek is a photographer that lives in Georgia. And Elliot's working in 8x20. So it's 2 sheets of 8x10 color film. Not something we see every day. And so what do you think he needs to make his work? Film. So he found Kodak Alaris, and not only did he find it and strike a relationship, but he celebrates that all the time. So this was an Instagram post that showed the box. It says, another all-important special delivery today, dreaming of the road. So you want to make sure that you give thanks, of course, always, whenever something like that can happen. So that's the basics, right? You knowing what you're doing, who it's for, what you need to get it done. Thinking about if I should apply for grants for people that know me, or if I should look for the people that are interested in my subject, the bigger pot of money. So let's talk about corporation or government first, and then public, private, and corporate foundations next, because that's a different beast. The government programs are, again, about you. You're submitting. How many of you have submitted a grant to your state arts board or something? A couple of you in the audience. You know, it's a process, but it's a good exercise for you to do, I think. Let's go there first. I'm a huge fan of starting local, primarily because you can often have a dialogue in person. Nothing better than that. Be able to talk in person to people about your work. So in my town, our Arts Council is named after our county, and all of you will know where to go in your state. I'll show you some examples, but just dig through those websites. Get on the mailing list of your county, your state, everything that can give you information. When you go to the state level, our government has organized the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies. So it's a point of entry. If you want to go into the NASAA-Arts, it will lead you to your state arts board, or I can just tell you that it's NISCA, which I hope all of you are on the email list for NISCA, NYSCA, the State Council on the Arts. Tremendous opportunities for you that are there. It's government funded. You're all eligible. Every state will have them. So when you go into the NISCA grant site, there's a section for if you are an artist. There's another section if you're a first-time applicant. They'll walk you through that process as well for their grants. There are tremendous resources on the website as well for you. And there's a focus in New York anyway on decentralization. There's lots of local, town-oriented grants. So more so than most. So take a hard look at that. If you happen to be funded, which is fantastic, I want you to do something like Linda Alterwitz did, which is celebrate that on your website. It's a form of accomplishment that you should be proud of. And the way she has her Nevada Arts Council 2014 Visual Arts Fellowship recipient right on her homepage, to me it lends value to the work right off the bat. I know that this has gone through a rigorous vetting, and that she was a recipient of that, and that's no small feat. So that to me is important. On her website, she goes through the projects that she was given funding for, and one of the elements of her mid-career show that she applied for money for, which was her catalog. And so right there she also has another funding source that was able to support her, the Puffin Foundation. Not only did she put the Puffin Foundation logo with the exhibition catalog, which it directly helped, but she has a section on the website talking about why it was such a good match, that the corporate culture of the Puffin Foundation was a match for her and her work. And that's a wonderful, generous place to be for you all to acknowledge people that have helped you. So city, county, state. When we step up to regional, what the US government has done is divide their sort of NEA monies into these 6 regional memberships now. They're the RAOs, the Regional Arts Organizations. So we're right here, and that means this state is part of the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation, MAAF. And I think you can tell by that map it's bound to be population driven, right? The wide open West, half of the West is one entire region. So when we get to the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation, I wanted to show you that the lower part of their website, which I've shot again here, asks you as you first arrive on the website, who are you? What learning do you need? Where can we take you? And so you would click in that you were an artist. I love that it's first. It gives me a sense that that's priority for them. And head into what they're saying is grants, programs, and resources for the individual artists, which is the hat that you're wearing, the individual artist. All kinds of different grants. Again, a mailing list. You want to be on the mailing list because you want to know when all of these deadlines are coming, when webinars are happening, when there's learning opportunities for you to know about. So that takes us up to corporate. So we've gone through all the government money and all the money that's about you and your work, not necessarily you and your specific project, okay? So I'm going to take a big step into that other pot of money that we were talking about, people that are interested in your subject. And one of the most important things to understand about people that are interested in your subject is that the biggest reach possible can come from corporate foundations, all levels of corporate philanthropy. So before I show you some websites, I'm going to try and help you read corporate websites to get a sense of their philanthropy programs. These are some of the things that I'm going to point out to you, and I want you to think about when you're doing your own research, is what is the incentive for that company? Why would they be giving? Where do they give? Like literally, do they give all over the world, or do they give in one town? You know, where is the territory that they give to, and who benefits from that money? So what is the incentive? Where do they give literally, geographically, and who benefits? So here's a brand. Everybody know what brand this is? We don't even need to see the name, do we? And we know, I mean, that is an effective brand. Graphically solid, right? Do you know where they have their focus in their giving? Anybody know? Pardon me? Schools, exactly. You can't shop at Target and not know that schools is their focus. They're all about the local community. Education is their thing. So I went into their website, and Target actually has it organized by corporate. There's a corporate section on their website. When I'm looking for the money for you, I look for, might say giving, might say corporate philanthropy, might say for good, everybody uses a slightly different language, but you're looking for that place on the website where they're not selling the sheets and the towels, but they're actually talking about their corporate philanthropy. So in this case, corporate responsibility, here for good. Isn't that a fantastic tagline? Here for good. That was my window into this. Areas of commitment were right on the first page of that section of the website. Education, sustainability, health and well-being, responsible sourcing, safety and preparedness, team members, and volunteerism. They're wearing their brand on their sleeve, essentially, right there. And community impact. Again, when you see that language, community, it's going to be something you'll see throughout. There, again, very important element. Education grants, taking charge of education, team members, very, very focused. And it says every time we build a new store, we bring our legacy of giving and service to the community around it through the local programs and partnerships we support. That was a huge clue for two giant elements of their brand. Legacy of giving and service to the community. That says to me it's priority one for them. The legacy of giving is something they're building on. They're not going to reinvent. They've got it locked up. Home Depot. Anybody know what their thing is? That's a good one. I think they are. I think maybe national parks.
Disaster help.
Disaster help. I mean, think about what they're in the business of. It's veterans housing is their main thing. But they do a lot of that disaster relief. They've also been core sponsors of Special Olympics for a long time. But they're in the business of building and building supplies. So, of course, it makes good sense that they would partner on that. But again, community impact grants. Right off the bat, that's their engagement, is community impact. Community, community, community. The question is, so on, for example, Home Depot's website, would they be interested in photography about veterans? And that's taking a couple of the keywords that we've seen as being important, and it's a good suggestion, it's a good question. I would look hard at the website. I'd look at credits to photography on it, or not, as the case may be. And you will find somewhere on that website how to apply and what their grant, if they're very organized grant givers, they'll have deadlines because they won't have things coming in randomly all the time. So there'll be lots of different ways that you can connect. But you do want to find that sweet spot. That was the root of your question, which I appreciate. On Bank of America, on the About Bank of America, it says service, commitment, and philanthropy. So again, we're seeing them proud of their service, commitment, and philanthropy, all very important. So there's loads of things on their website, but here I found find grants and sponsorships, and you see this on the lower right? It says, did you know they have a program called Art in Our Communities that loans full exhibitions to regional museums. Fantastic. I know so many people with exhibitions in their basement that came down from their tour. It's like time to get the work out again. So if you don't have a Bank of America in your town, do you think they're going to be as interested in you? Do you think Target funds education outside of the communities? We're going to find that it's a thread that people are interested in funding where they work. Review the community grants and sponsorships offered from Bank of America to help you benefit your nonprofit organization. Our grants can be used as general operating support as well. Remember that part, the general operating support. I'm going to come back to that. This is new information for us right now. Offered by Bank of America to benefit your nonprofit organization. How many of you are a nonprofit organization? Most of us aren't. It's a huge task to become a nonprofit organization. What Bank of America is saying here is they do not fund individual requests. And on most of the corporate philanthropy that you find, they will say we do not accept grants from individuals. So we'll tackle that. And you can understand why. It again puts you into the community when you come with a community organization. Johnson & Johnson, another giant firm, does a tremendous amount of philanthropy. And they are committed to their giving. This whole section of the website is called Our Giving. Our Caring, Our Citizenship and Sustainability, Our Stories, Company Initiatives. The language that they're using, to me, humanizes the company, our. When you go through the website, there's featured stories. We're all kind of thinking and making stories these days. It's a perfect match. So when you go into a website like this, and you go through everything about like our people and our diversity, everything is played out for you, and you'll come to this section called Company Initiatives. And all of these thumbnails on the screen are connecting us to a project that they have funded. In other words, they're celebrating on this Company Initiative section what they're proud of and what they've done to give back to the world. Caring for our heroes, for all you love, Care Inspires Care, the Johnson & Johnson Campaign for Nursing's Future, Strength for Caring, Save Kids Worldwide. All of those things are clearly stated to us that they are an initiative that they've been committed to for some time. And you know, just as an aside, I want to say, I think that the corporate philanthropy assignments, not applying to them, but you being a photographer, since I'm talking to a room of photographers, it's the best work you can get. The editorial style documentation of corporate philanthropy is like the best kind of deep focused work at corporate rates. And I think you'd be surprised at how many world-class editorial shooters are seeking out that kind of assignment, long-term, in the field, sharing with the world the good work that they're doing. So that's just, again, a little aside that you might look for design firms that are representing companies to design their, what we used to call annual reports. Now not everything is printed, so a lot of that's online. You can see the style of photography. You could look at this Johnson & Johnson website as a photographer hat on and see if it's work that you know that you could do for them, figure out who their design firm is, or do they do it in-house? They manage all their marketing in-house. That's the question you really need to ask. Even the cold call on the phone, never Monday mornings. You can't get a receptionist to tell you much on a Monday morning. Tuesday morning, not so bad. Don't go Friday either. But you're a photographer. You've looked hard at the website. You love the philanthropy that you're doing. It matches your own passions as a photographer. And you'd love to add their design firm or designer that is in-house to your mailing list, right? So it's not like you're downstairs with a portfolio trying to push your way in. But it gives you a chance to figure out who the right person is to ask to put your work in front of them. Interesting, don't you think? And any of these sites, I can tell you, they're documenting this. These corporations are giving so much money through their philanthropy divisions. They are absolutely documenting it. So, just an aside in a room full of photographers. So, what did we learn from that? Where are they giving? Local, in the neighborhoods that they work in. That way, not only are they giving back to the people that buy their products, but there's another really important population that benefits from their philanthropy, and it's their employees and their families. And you'll very often see that in various parts of their website. And when you start to listen in on some other conversations about grant giving, you'll see that they want things to benefit their employees and their families. So it's, you know, those to me are kind of typical giving practices of large companies that have a lot of money to give. It's an important piece of it. One of the elements that you'll also find corporations interested in sponsoring are exhibitions. And when someone sponsors an exhibition, we have to think that in addition to those other things that we just talked about with the benefits of philanthropy for the community and their employees and their families, when they sponsor an exhibit, we can only assume that they're looking for potential audience for their brand among the people that would come to that exhibit, whether it's the subject of the exhibit or it's the Metropolitan. I'm going to use the Metropolitan as my example. So we've all been to the Met, and on the Met website, which is metmuseum.org, when you go to the homepage of the Met Museum, you'll find Give and Join. And when you go into the section on giving and joining, of course they start with membership, the basic level of connection. But this is the one I want you to look at, the corporate support of exhibitions. Now we're going to listen in on a conversation, because the development director at the Metropolitan Museum is going to be talking on this section of the website about why you, Corporation XYZ, should fund a show at the Met. And that's the kind of conversation I want you all to listen in on, because it gives you the language of the audience that you may be trying to reach. So we'll go into corporate support. So of course, right off the bat, they're going to sing the praises of those people that have been with them throughout, thick and thin, as I did with Canon at Look 3 from the beginning. Very important to us. And from there, there's a section on exhibition sponsorship. Underneath that, the benefits of exhibition sponsorship. Again, they're not talking to you. They're talking to the corporations that are now on the website under corporate sponsorship. And what you'll see underneath the benefits of exhibition sponsorship, there's a link right here. It says download the special exhibitions brochure. So remember when you go to the Met or the Modern, any of the large museums, and there's a special exhibit, it's a giant blockbuster, often has an extra fee. Those are what they would consider the special exhibits. Anything that's not their permanent collection that they're bringing out is a special collection that has to be shipped in, has to be graded, has to be insured, has to have experts speaking about it. Docents have to be trained in a different way, the whole package. So when you download that brochure, which I really want you to do, it's a 16-page PDF. And it is literally the conversation that you get to listen in on, that should you be wishing to fund an exhibition right now, it will be things you can cull from and find very valuable. So one of the things that you'll find when you dig through this brochure, with exhibitions in particular, you'll find that they will tell a corporation that should you fund one of our special exhibitions, we will make the museum available to your company for special lunches or tours. We'll have days when your employees and their families can come and do special education workshops. So again, the families of the employees is a huge piece of it. But does it make sense that we get to listen in? It's just a valuable dialogue that is all on the web, because this brochure is downloadable. You don't have to have it handed to you by the Director of Development at the Met. You get to listen in on the conversation. So I'm anxious for you to have that experience, and then it'll clue you into other things that make sense that you can listen in on. So in addition to exhibitions, there are other kinds of things that you make that corporations value. And it may be that it's prints that are special gifts at the holidays for their best customers. It may be that you've been working on a body of work about the landscape of a region where that corporation has operated for 72 years. And what's the important thing about that number? 72 years is almost 75 when they're probably going to have a big splash for an anniversary. And you might bring that work to them and say, let's work together to produce something special, exhibition, publication, those kinds of things. If you're mindful of your region, maybe 250 miles from your home, how many Fortune 500 companies are there? When were they founded? Is there a possible connection? That kind of thing can happen. That's why I say ideal when marking corporate anniversaries or as a high-end brand promotion. I know a number of people that have been able to fund the making of their fine art books by a corporation that was related to that place, that project, that issue, and then they gave them out as gifts. It was a wonderful thing. So my favorite example of that kind of thing, some of you may be familiar with the Day in the Life series. How many of you remember the Day in the Life series? Fantastic business model, really brilliant. They knew what they needed to make that project happen, just like I was asking you in the very beginning. They needed hotels, they needed airfare, they needed cameras, they needed computers, they needed all kinds of things to put 100 photographers around the country on the same day. So Rick Smolin and David Cohen, who were the founders of Day in the Life, went out to many dozens of corporations that fit those needs and struck a deal with them that they would give that in-kind support of those things, whether it's an airfare, or it's a hotel room, or it's cameras. And in addition to that, to thank them for that, they gave them the opportunity to buy the books at what we refer to as pre-pub, at a pre-publication rate. In other words, a screaming deal. They had to pay for them up front, is my understanding. Now, why would they want that? You got to pay the printer and the binder and the shipping and all that. But they did something special that I've seen a lot of artists do with corporate special sales. If you plan far enough out, you can strike a deal with Corporation XYZ that they're going to enable the body of work to be finished, and it's going to come out in a book that would be, in fact, the match for them for the launch of a new office in a different country, or the corporate anniversary, or the release of some new product, some reason to have a glorious gift. They're planning so far ahead that the CEO of that corporation can, in fact, get a block of paper and know exactly where to sign, because the text is going to fill this much of it, and if they sign their name down here, when those sheets meet back up with the rest of the book and go through the printer, they're going to have a unique page 1 from any of the copies that are sold to the public. So, for example, I'm in a used bookstore. I came across Day in the Life of America, and here's all these brands. But I can tell you, I got the Kodak Special Edition. Many of you did too, perhaps. And the page 1, this page was nowhere to be found in the corporate version. The Kodak version was a letter from Ray DeMolin, and it made it sound like nobody else was involved in that project but Kodak. And that was fine. They were celebrating their involvement in it. There were no other logos. You could put the fancy embossed gold K on the cover of a slipcase edition, whatever version of it you wanted. But because they planned it far ahead, they were able to do this special thing for their funders. And you could too. Super smart. So the trade version, that was a for sale version, had all the logos. But there's lots of different things like that that you can do. And I maintain that what you all can do is not something that necessarily a corporate communications office is thinking about at 3 years out of a major anniversary. Let's find a photographer that happens to have a project about our area, or the people in our community, or the beautiful landscape in the area that we work, or the country that we're about to expand into, and have them make a body of work about it. It doesn't work that way. You have something that's right for many people, I'm sure. So I want you to reverse that mindset and look for people that are like-minded to you for these kinds of things, because it's a wonderful thing. Now, on the Bank of America website, we saw that you and your nonprofit are able to apply. The difference between the first pot of money, the ones that grant to you, family, friends, arts organizations, National Endowment, they can write the check to you. You win the Guggenheim, the check comes to you. Target, Bank of America, all these companies, they could write a check to you, but they're going to miss out on something that most corporations have as an incentive for themselves to give. And that would be a small thing like a tax write-off. Little fiscal advantage, shall we say. So to work with corporations, the vast majority of them will not give to you unless you are a 501c3, which is the government's term, by the way, for a nonprofit organization, or you have an affiliation that they can write the check to someone that is a 501c3 and they get their tax write-off. So if you're not a 501c3, anyone in the room a 501c3 of their own? I'm not surprised. It's a challenging thing. You need to work through a 501c3 that will take you on. They will slap their letterhead in the top of your grant application. They will send it off. You win the grant. The funder writes the check to them. They then pay you. In the part where they then pay you, they typically extract an administrative fee for the service of that. The percentage varies by organization. So I want to show you 3 organizations that a lot of photographers work with and explain a little bit about how that happens, how they work and how the organizations work. And by way of introduction to this concept of fiscal agents. But understand that you could partner with your local community organizations. You could partner with a venue if you've been working in botanical gardens for your own photography. It could be that the New York Botanical Gardens would serve as your fiscal agent. They may not have been asked to be one before, or on the other hand, they may have been doing it for years. So I think it's always nice if there's a connection with you and your work with a smaller place that you can then celebrate that relationship. You could say that you'll give them the first exhibit. Something like that is a great give back and a great logical thing. So Blue Earth Alliance, Fractured Atlas, and NYFA, the New York Foundation for the Arts, all serve as fiscal agents. And I'll start with Blue Earth Alliance, which is a wonderful organization out of Seattle. It was founded by 2 photographers, actually, Phil Borges and Natalie Phobes. And what they found with their own photography was they had a challenge raising money because they were not nonprofit organizations. And they banded together and made a commitment to start an organization whose sole purpose is to be a 501c3 umbrella organization, another phrase you may have heard, for photographers' projects. Amazing organization. Small organization, I want to underscore that they do not raise the money for you. They give you that 501c3 status, the government status. That means if they endorse a project and you raise that money, they will need a small administrative fee to come out because that's how they stay alive. But that's their role in this process. So you want to go on the website, blueearth.org. You want to look at their submission guidelines. I can tell you one of the things that's important to Blue Earth is that your missions align. If your work falls under the purview of things, it's fairly broad, but it's important to read and see if it's a good match for you. If that's the case, then I encourage you to apply. They have application periods twice a year. The company that you keep is amazing at Blue Earth. When you look at the list of photographers that have been accepted, it's fantastic. Some of them are gigantic and have been funded because we see the exhibits out there, we see the books, and know that those photographers, by choosing Blue Earth, that those additional funds, percentage of what they raise, is coming back to Blue Earth so they can then help you. There are others of us, like myself, in the country that are supporters of it. So if you got Blue Earth status for your project, then you get time with me to strategize your fundraising. A lot of us give back to Blue Earth in one way or the other. So that's like our wonderful sort of small photography organization that we love, that supports our own. But I want you to see, I also want to underscore, forgive me, that they have been doing some educational programs that are fantastic. They recently held something in Seattle called Collaborations for Cause, One of their conference partners is Photo Wings, which is a group that's been a long-time supporter of Look 3. So in that dialogue of those of us that continue to support Blue Earth, this is the kind of thing that we try to bring out to a broader group of people. So Fractured Atlas is another umbrella organization or 501c3 supporter of creative projects. They're a little bit broader in their purview. They are interested in creative art forms of all kind, and they also support organizations as well. They're more robust, so they do more learning and webinars and in-person seminars as well. The onus is still on you to raise the money, but they have the means to be able to do more education for you. So when you go into their website, you'll see a long section, I'll show you in a second, of different things, different ways that you can learn. And when you go into their FAQs on fracturedatlas.org, there's all these questions that are answered relating to how can I learn more, how can I connect with the staff, is it a webinar, when are there open phone hours, all the way down to how much does it cost. This one says there's a 7% administrative fee on contributed funds. So they're typically between 7 and 12%. You just have to find out on each of them, and of course you'll have a contract so you'd know exactly what was expected of you. Another one is the New York Foundation for the Arts, which is a fantastic organization based in Brooklyn. And again, get on the mailing list of all these organizations. It will help you to keep thinking about this aspect of fundraising when those things come in. NYFA is awesome and totally diverse in what they do. There's a section about their fiscal agents that will walk you through all of it. And on this one, for example, it tells you exactly what it's going to cost. They also have a contract fee, so if they accept you, then there's a fee to do the paperwork to go forward. An annual contract renewal of $50 if your fundraising goes on for years and years, just to keep active with them. All logical expenses, I think you'll agree. And then it's one interesting thing I thought was great in the FAQs. They asked, can I take an artist fee? And what they mean by that, the person asking was saying, can I pay myself? In this grant, should I be listed in the budget as someone that is going to be paid? And the answer is, yes, you can take a fee for being the project director and for being an artist on the project. Typically, the project directors don't pay themselves more than 20% of the budget. However, the artist fee varies depending upon the type of project. So that kind of information is all here. As you can see, it's a little bit more robust, this particular site. And then it tells you what you're going to need to apply. All of them will do that, but it's not something to look at lightly. Not unlike a big grant application for the Guggenheim or NEA. I mean, these are a matter of organizing your materials, and the sooner you're organized, the better, because it'll be easier for you to reach for these bits of information to put grants together as soon as you hear about them. So can't encourage you more to dig through all that. NYFA, as I mentioned, is a much broader intended organization. There's loads of resources for you online. They publish books. They have all different sorts of things. There's a whole series on the business of art. NYFA is a great, great organization. They also serve as a fiscal agent. So loads of things. They do this wonderful thing called Artist Hotline. New York Foundation for the Arts invites all artists and cultural institutions to join hashtag Artist Hotline, an artist professional development day on Twitter every third Wednesday of the month from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Isn't that awesome? So the May 18th is their day on Twitter. Really interesting, I think. I'll have to dive into that. So they have all kinds of other things that lists upcoming competitions and awards. I know a lot of people use NYFA as their go-to place for upcoming grant applications. Their listings all look like this. Loads and loads of resources for you right there. So be sure to get on the mailing list for NYFA. Now, I have to say, I so admire photographers that are so committed to their projects that they form their own 501c3, which is a tremendous endeavor and expense legally, just to get it all established and then stay current with all your corporate tax returns and all. It's a big, big commitment. And I'm just going to show you two examples. I hope this is work that you already know. Stephanie Sinclair's project, Too Young to Wed, and Nick Brandt's project called The Big Life Foundation. Have any of you seen the Nick Brandt show that's over at Edwin Houck? It's up for 2 more days. Saturday's the last day of the show. we're having a show probably 4 times as large as that at Look 3 this year. It's going to be the largest show of Nick's new work in the country. I'm very proud of that. So Stephanie's project, Too Young to Wed, is amazing, about child brides and all the ramifications thereof. Started her own foundation, as well as Nick Brandt's Big Life Foundation. So do those photographers the courtesy of having a look at the efforts that they're making for their subjects, which is can't be more authentic and genuine than that, as far as I'm concerned. So another way for you to raise money is crowdsource funding. And I'm sure that there are many people in this room who have given to a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe or an Indiegogo or something, and there may even be some of you in the room that have actually tried to do one of these yourself. Hopefully you've achieved it. And I want to give you a couple of case studies on it. It's not for everyone. I think for myself, one of the things that I would discourage you from thinking about crowdsource funding, if you don't know your audience and how to reach them, you'll have a hard time getting it started. Anyone who's done a crowdsource will tell you it was more time consuming than they thought, and that if you don't have a mailing list of at least hundreds, if not thousands of names that will open an email from you, another consideration, that you may not have success from it. So I will say Kickstarter is going to be my example because I feel like they give you the most education about how to proceed. So I'm going to share with you a project that a photographer in Tucson, where I live, embarked upon, which was to do an exhibition catalog, a major mid-career exhibition that he had coming up. One of the first things you can do is you can look at your town, and it gives you a list of people that were successful with your project. So you may find, again, starting local, that there's people that you knew down the street that you didn't realize they were into, developing a new bicycle or whatever their thing is, and that they had a successful Kickstarter, because there are elements of a successful Kickstarter that can be shared no matter what the subject of your Kickstarter was. So always look local. Here he found somebody whose project was 202% funded. His, in fact, was 203% funded, more than double what he'd asked for. So it was a time in his career to have a mid-career retrospective. This is at the Klompching Gallery. This is work prior to that. And he asked for $7,000 and raised $14,000. Spent the summer doing the campaign. I'll tell you, one of the things that it was important to think about before embarking on that Kickstarter, we wondered if any of his collectors were actually on Kickstarter supporting artist projects. And the reason that it was important to me that we think about that is that so often photographers, when they're giving the awards levels, when you give your gifts to people, when they support your project, so many of those, as you know, are prints. And if you're trying to build a collectible market with limited edition prints, or even further along, if you have someone representing you who is responsible for maintaining an edition structure and in maintaining the value of that work, be careful to not select awards that compete essentially with yourself and with what you're trying to build. So we went online and saw that a number of his major collectors were supporting artists' work and felt like this will be fine. They're going to understand that. Again, don't offer something as a gift that's the same as your dealer is selling. That makes sense to everyone, right? So did a lot of studying of things that had been funded. One of the things you can do on Kickstarter as well is look at things that were not funded. You can learn so much from analyzing the campaigns that were not funded. So that means that if you're not funded, you're on the website forever as a project that was not funded. You're the example. And it's fascinating to do that. One of the things that Ken Rosenthal decided to do was publish this catalog locally so that you could learn more. And I can't tell you how much I applaud that. It's such a challenging thing to make your first book. I don't know how many of you have been through that yet. But if it's something that you can do where you can actually be on press and you can be with the graphic designer and touching the papers and feeling all of it, you'll learn so much more about the process. And so I'm putting a few of these slides in just to underscore that. It's tricky. If you're the self-publisher and you have a book coming out that you want at your gallery on a certain day for an opening, and it's not there in time, it's your fault. Even if the shippers had a strike, if the paper was faulty, it's under your watch. So remember, if you're raising something for some event, make sure that you start far enough back that there's no slip-ups. His made it, it was all good. It was the book of the week on Photo Eye. He had a relationship with them, so they knew that the book was coming. This is the Photo Eye website looked like this. It was voted into Books of the Year that year. All this marketing, of course, is up to you. When I shared with you, he raised double the money. So then he was able to go back to his dream book packager publisher called Jace Graff at Cloverleaf Press. Makes the most beautiful bindings for limited editions. And he made a limited edition of the book, 50 copies only, but shows 5 different covers for 10 books each. And some of his collectors bought one of each. So that was a very nice, smart thing to do. On his website, of course, beautiful photography of those so that the collectors know exactly what they're getting. And that became an extension of the original Kickstarter because it was so successful with the money. Now, when you work with Kickstarter, they give you all the stats as you're going through the project, and looking back at it afterwards is fascinating. So the stats are all there for you. So for example, most of the projects that are funded on Kickstarter are under $10,000. By far. Now, more than half were not funded. And if you're thinking about a Kickstarter, start looking at those stats now. Again, one of the reasons I love Kickstarter is that they push out to us what their favorite projects are. I went to the LA Art Book Fair. I hope some of you have been to the New York Art Book Fair. How many of you have been to the New York Art Book Fair? One hand in the audience. So if you're thinking about a publication of any kind, the New York Art Book Fair is amazing. It's run by Printed Matter. It happens typically in September at PS1 in Queens, and do not miss it. Do not miss it. It will impact how you use paper. It'll impact your promo piece. It'll impact your design, all of it. But when I went to the LA version of the Art Book Fair, Kickstarter had a booth at the Art Book Fair covered with books that they had helped to support, which I thought, this is fantastic. They weren't selling them, they just brought their favorite books that had been funded through Kickstarter. So they're always pushing your work out there, which I love. This is a website that I definitely want you to look at. It's a designer named Craig Mod, and so it's his website, craigmod.com/journal/kickstartup. And this gentleman did real courtesy to all of you. What he did was created a section on his website that tracked and documented and followed all the way through his incredible process of making a book through Kickstarter. $24,000 in 30 days, a room full of books in 60, and a new way to publish in 90. And I checked the link this morning, it's all still live, but again, did the homework for you. All of you that are thinking about this, look at how he did the analysis. So this is the day that they hit their mark. But I can share with you, Ken was looking at things like ahead of time again. What days of the week had the most response? So when do you send your e-blasts out? All of those sorts of things are crucial to being part of the success. You know, days, where was there a flat part? And then when did I send the next e-blast out? All of these things. Daily pledge totals. And who gave what when? When did the big ones come in? But that's the way you have to look at it to be successful, whether it's GoFundMe or Indiegogo. I will say, for those of you that aren't aware, Kickstarter does not give a percentage to as a philanthropic piece. So if you go online and do a Kickstarter buy, there's no way that you can write any of that off. If you go to Indiegogo, you can. They set it up so that you, the person running the campaign, can have an option for your fans, as it were, who are going to go there, to get a tax write-off for it. It impacts you in terms of the percentage that you get. So just study. The big three are Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and GoFundMe, which has in fact surpassed Kickstarter now in the total volume that's being done. So I noticed not too long ago that on Kickstarter, I get their emails that says, we've got news, Kickstarter is now a benefit corporation. So I thought, well, this is curious. Why are they changing the status of their corporation? And so I looked into what a benefit corporation is. They're required to make a material positive impact on society and the environment to meet the higher standards, et cetera, et cetera. So on the Kickstarter blog, they talked about it. We're now a public benefit corporation, that they have to give back to their community a certain percentage. And so my ears perked up because I'm the director of a nonprofit organization. So I'm thinking, oh, great. Kickstarter's made a fortune off all of you. Where's that money going? I need to get it for our event. So I dug through here, and I looked and looked and looked to find, what are they going to give back? How do we apply? And this is what I found. And we newly commit to donate 5% of annual post-tax profits to arts education and organizations fighting equality. It's a good thing. They didn't tell you right here one important thing that we've learned. Where? Where? Where are they giving? Where do you think they're giving? Brooklyn. Where are they based? Brooklyn. The vast, vast majority of the money that's going to come from this new pot that they're going to give back is going to go to arts education. Where are we? Arts education and organizations fighting inequality. Probably not going to come to Charlottesville, Virginia, but I'm going to try for it. Got to try. But that's pretty great, isn't it? So I kind of balance that off with they're not necessarily giving us, when we buy something, a discount, or forgive me, a nonprofit credit, but they're giving back. Giving back is, we want to be connected with people that give back. So let's step back a little bit towards the beginning. We were talking about the like-minded people, and let's drill that down a little bit too. People that are interested in your project, this is from my perspective, this is the pot of people that are like-minded, that are most likely to engage with you. Of course, friends and family foundations that have a shared passion, gallery museum professionals, again, some hook there that makes sense for them to be interested in what you're doing, collectors, corporate philanthropists, product manufacturers in certain cases, right? Camera companies, printers, car companies if it's a car that you need to make it happen. The travel industry corporations and the tourism, as we saw from the Arthur Drucker project. He reached out to that community. They gave back in a huge way. And then members of the press. Oh, I'm gonna have to go through this build again. Sorry, you guys. It's the way it works. Members of the press. What's the most important thing about members of the press? They're talking about you. You're not taking an ad out in something. When someone's writing about you, get someone that's a writer to be interested in what your project is, or interested in you, or the process that you're using, or the place that you're photographing, and that draws even more people to you that are like-minded. So that's an awesome thing when that can happen. So I want to share with you a favorite website. This is Thomas Van Hooterve. Thomas is a photographer that's part of the agency 7. And to me, his website nails a lot of what we've been talking about here in how he talks to his community. So his website has 3 words: you, me, and connect. So that sums up his entire reason for having something on a website: to talk to you, to learn more about him, and to connect in some way, which is so simple and brilliant, I think. So under you, he's assuming that the people that are coming to meet him there, art collectors, picture editors, institutions, sponsors, And students. I love that part too. He has students there. Art collectors, picture editors, institutions, sponsors, and students. So I can assume these are the people he's interested in talking to, because he's shouting out to them essentially right off the bat. Me, he's happy to share with you his works about, books, shows and events, writing, collaborators that he works with, tools, and press. So that just about covers the kinds of things that somebody would want to know about if they were a potential sponsor, or if they were a gallery and they're having an exhibit of this photographer's work, or a collector that were interested in it. I mean, that kind of rounds out the sorts of information that we are often asked. And it's in a nice, logical fashion, I believe. So then when we go to connect, of course we get contact. That's sort of the no-brainer. Blog, newsletters, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. So it's truly, literally connecting, which is an important thing. On his sponsor page, again, he's talking straight to people that are reaching to him as potential sponsors. So he says, sponsorships have helped me build and sustain my career in photographic projects. With the recent arrival of crowdfunding and micro-donations, art supporters no longer have to be wealthy to get involved in backing a project. So he's telling people how they can help and what way they can help, why they can help, and then goes through different pieces of it. So I think you can tell why I was so impressed with this site, and drops into different projects that he's working on, and it's just super smart. So I want to give you a window on how my brain works about research for fundraising, okay? We're in New York City, pointing at the fundraising. This is the best place on the planet, and it's right here in New York. There's 5 branches in the U.S. that are formal offices of the Foundation Center. The New York City branch of the Foundation Center is their base, and they've recently moved downtown, all the way down. And it's an organization that exists to help you raise money. You as individual artists, or you as arts organizations, but it all happens at the Foundation Center. Been going to classes there for years. It's the kind of place where you can learn so much of it online, and then if you choose to, go to classes in person, go use the library in person. When you first come to the website, it says welcome individual grant seekers. It will go through all the different kinds of information they can help you learn. Then it will give you their offices. There's the main office. And this is the schedule for this month, just 2 weeks of this month downtown. Introduction to proposal writing, introduction to project budgets, introduction to corporate giving. Every month they do one that's an introduction to philanthropy for individual artists. October is Arts Funding Month. Loads of opportunities during October. So be mindful of that as well. But I wanted to point out, not knowing where all of you lived, at the very bottom of that list there was something called the Funding Information Network. So when you click on that, as I did this morning, I chose to type in New York, and it pulled up all these other places in the region. So it'll give you a list of other places that are official branches or part of their funding network, okay? Which means that they will have the most current databases that you can use free. Some of them are public libraries, some are university libraries. This is the Yonkers Public Library came up with a link, a grant center link all the way into their library website. The White Plains Library, the Brooklyn Public Library, loads of branches. So don't feel like you have to only come into New York. When you click through, the larger ones will have a link to their section. So here's the Brooklyn Public Library, and here it says Foundation Center's Cooperating Collection. So find grants for both individuals and institutions in this print and online collection. The Foundation Directory online database is available for use and are public computers. So that means that you can use their deep, deep research. Their most expensive level of membership gets you all the way into the database, and you can use it free at their place. So the way I start is I go to the Foundation Center website, and I go to the free section. There's a section, and I'll point out where it is. The free section allows you to search by either knowing the name of the foundation, because we hear it on NPR every day or something, or to look in your area by putting in your zip code or your state. So on the home page, this section here, block number 6, essentially, is called funder data. Name, state, or zip code, as I described, either knowing a group already or checking where you live. So you'll fill in this block. So I typed in the main zip code in downtown Tucson, my town, and up came 3 family foundations. And I look at what their assets are. Some of them have a lot more money than others. So interestingly, one that doesn't have much money gave away more than they had. So that's where I start. Then I went to my own state. I went to Arizona. Now we're up to, I think, oh wait, sorry, I'm still looking at that one. So when you're in, so if you want to click into those, so if we had clicked on this button right here, the name of the foundation, it takes us into this thing they call at a glance. So it gives you an overview of what they're interested in, including their areas of interest. So it doesn't say art right off the bat, but it does say animals and wildlife, environment and land resources, and also Mexico. We all know people that have work about all those things. So even though it didn't say art or photography, this is where we're thinking subject again, right? And it tells you the assets for different years, what they've got and what they've spent. So I look at all of them that way, and I think, you know what, none of those are just right. I'm going to go to the state. So I typed in state of Arizona. It jumped from 3 to 965. And believe me, in New York City, oh my God, you have so much money that's being given away right here. So see, it ranges from 800,000. Here's somebody that has millions to give away. So broad, diverse range of opportunity. You can click into them, have a peek at them. Arts is number 2 right here. 206. So they gave 34 grants that year. The highest was 20. The lowest was 2. I kind of like that. That's kind of a community sort of bank, if you will. They're giving a little bit to a lot of people. Other foundations you'll find will give one thing that's right on target with their passion, period. 1 for the whole thing. But you learn to understand all of this by researching. Now, what we're looking at right here is their tax form. So I'm going to go backwards in my research and show you that this page, this at a glance page, do you see this 990 that's in red? That's the government term for the tax forms of the foundations. They all have to file what we call a 990. And believe me, when you go on the website for the Foundation Center, you'll see this thing that teaches you how to read a 990. It's one of those numbers like 501c3, but 990 is the tax form. So here we are looking at their tax form. And why do you want to look at the tax form? I consider it a second tier of research. I like to see who they actually gave to and how much they got and what they give for. Is it visual arts broadly, or is it only dance? I mean, who knows what it is? So I like to go through their tax form and look for these pages where all the lists are of who they actually gave to. My experience has been, see, this is a 24-page PDF of their tax form, and this is page 20. So it's kind of, you'll dig through and find in there. So I want to point out to you that this particular family foundation, under their purpose of contribution category on the right, assist disadvantaged of Pima County by providing free home repair service, sorry. Provide diapers for children and adults through community partnership. Provide students in need of vision, exams, and eyeglasses. They have a very specific anchor to their giving. They know exactly what they want the money to be used for, right? Now, I'm going to show you a totally different example. The other end of the spectrum. Barry Diller and Diane von Furstenberg have long histories of philanthropy. And if you have walked on the High Line, you have experienced the benefit of the Diller von Furstenberg Family Foundation, because they fund, where do you think they fund? Where they live and where they work. And that is in a couple of zip codes right next to each other, and the impact on Lower Manhattan is unbelievable. But they're interested in many more things. Their website is fascinating to look at. The website is dvfm.org. FFF, Diller von Furstenberg Family Foundation.org. So these are some of their grantee categories: public spaces and art, community building, education, human rights, arts, health, environment. When you look at what they give, their assets are many, many, many millions of dollars. Arts and culture is number 1. Health and well-being come right behind. Extraordinary. They give so much money away. Fantastic. Let's look at their tax fund. Now, these are the pages of who got the grants that year. And there's something very different about this foundation. Anybody notice something? General operating. General operating means that you can pay the light bill with it. If you're in a jam and you need to make payroll that month, you can use the money for that. It's completely unrestricted, but which is an absolute gift to any organization, to be able to trust them that much to say, we need you to stay in business. However you need to use this money, use it. No questions asked. Extraordinary gifts. The gifts keep coming from them. So it may be that you, in your research of 990 forms, that you want to look hard also at how people give. It may impact. It's just a little interesting window to see that, in fact, they give so broadly. It's amazing, right? So I want to show you a couple of photographers' case studies quickly, because we're drawing to where I want to have time for Q&A for all of you. Jamie Stillings is an incredible photographer that lives in Santa Fe, and his core website is jamiestillings.com. And also, as photographers, I urge you to be mindful of the language on his website: projects, portraits, concepts, and environments. As our industries change, it's very interesting language to tell clients what you do. And then below that, copyright and licensing, fine art prints. These are on his core business website. Very interesting. The mention of the fine art, I think, adds value to it. Then we click into one of his project websites called Bridge at the Hoover Dam. Bridge at Hoover Dam. The first image is a framed photograph. It's now an object for a different audience on the wall. I think that adds value too. Fine art prints, remember it was way down below on the core website? It's up here now, number 1 right below, or number 2 right below statement. Copyright and licensing on every project website, because that is part of your business model no matter what the subject of your work or your project is. So there's an education in how he organizes his business and that value. And this is one of my favorite things about this site. I had never seen a website that had a section called Thanks, where he's acknowledging who helped him make the project. And that is just, it's good from the heart, it's good business, it helps us know you. When I read that, I know more about him, because he took the time to make sure that happened. And that helps us to have relationships that keep on giving as well. So just an interesting thing. How many of you are on Instagram? So I want you to be mindful of being really strategic with your Instagram. If you're serious about your photography and you're serious about your business, don't use it like Facebook. Use it for business. If you don't have your name yet on Instagram, you're probably going to have a hard time getting it. So make sure that if you have to pick a new name, that you pick a name that either has studio in it, or photographer, or where you live, or something that when we look at 5 pages of Jane and John Doe, we don't have to stop and wonder which one's you and give up. I'm sure you've all had that happen already. But the people that are being written up in the Wall Street Journal and being focused on in Time Lightbox, you know, the 10 top Instagram feeds this year and all, are using it like a business, are using it like a second website. And I would say all of you should be hashtagging the brands that you use. If you shot that image with a Canon camera, Canon USA. If you use a certain paper to print when you show us an object, you know, I'm not a big fan of images being posted unless they're part of the project. I want them to come out of the digital form and be in your hand. You're holding a print, or we see it on the wall. You know, bring it to an object place. Who made the paper? Hashtag that. So one of my favorites is Matt Black. And Matt Black has done an extraordinary project called Geography of Poverty. He's still in the middle of this project. He's on the second phase of it now. MSNBC is a sponsor of it, and they've given it a lot of press. So this is his Instagram, and his language is photographing the geography of poverty. And then this is now the second section of it. I thought I had some caption information as well. So this image, you see this one here, this is the beginning of when the next section in the project starts. You'll find a map periodically with his path, so we can really follow along in a logical way. So have a good look at it. One of the things I love about this I even called it a website, this Instagram feed, is that his images that were part of the project, there's 4 constant captions. It's almost like having a script for your captions. It's the county that the city he photographed in, the county, what the poverty level is in that county, and how many people live below that. And so every image, we learn how to read that by having a style sheet for his captions. Very interesting site to look at. I would also encourage you to do things like do a Google search, Time Lightbox, most interesting Instagram feeds. You know, get a window on what Lens Culture is talking about. Get a window on people that are looking at a lot of pictures, and then look at those sites, follow them, and learn from it. If you don't have your name, I'm not kidding, hurry up. You don't have to post tomorrow, but just if you don't lock it, it's like the Oklahoma land rush of URLs when we first were all getting our website names and they're gone. Same thing on Instagram. So I want to show you, as we're drawing to a close, this is what I think about when I think about all of you in your studios, okay? That you're researching, you're experimenting, you're making your work and you're marketing it too. In other words, it's getting out. You're surrounding yourself with consistent art and business practices, right? I'm speaking to all of you. You're all shaking your head yes. That you are constantly researching and involved in continuing education throughout your life, and that you acknowledge that we are peers, that we are colleagues, and that we are an amazing community. So that's kind of what drives, you know, what I do for all of you as I think about that. I want to remind you that the only way we see your work is if you get it out there. So call for entries, this website called callforentry.com, something to think about if you don't look at it often. There's some great opportunities for you. Lately I've been seeing corporate art consultants listing on there, looking for projects like art for hospitals and such, which is great because it's not easy to find those people, so they're reaching out to you that way. Some of the upcoming deadlines, this is a grant I had not heard of before. It's called Prix Virginia for women photographers. Deadline is May 6th, Prix Virginia. The Duke Center for Documentary Studies Lang Taylor Prize is a grant for a photographer and writer team, as Dorothea Lang and her husband Paul Taylor were, and the deadline's been extended to May 16th. Magnum has a competition that they're doing in tandem with Lens Culture, and that deadline is May 24th. It's coming up. And Photo Place Gallery up in Vermont, the juror is Laura Moya. I always look at who the juror is. That's the most important thing to me, for you. And Laura runs Photo Lucida out in Portland, and the competition called Critical Mass, which I hope some of you have been entering. It's one of my favorites to see every year. And then I think there's a couple more. Photo Wings has an amazing grant for $5,000 to educators that are members of SPE or Ashoka. Deadline is June 1. And then at Look 3, we have an amazing scholarship that Photo Shelter is giving this year for photographers that have not been out more than 8 years working as making some money with their photography. And it's a grant for hotel, travel, and then we match it with a full education and festival grant. So that deadline is May 13th. And I hope you'll have a look at that on our website. This is what Look 3 is all about, look3.org, our festival, which mixes up all kinds of photography. That was what I was most impressed with when I first went to Look 3. The greatest photojournalists, the greatest fine art conceptual work, the greatest documentarians, natural history photographers, a little bit of everything. And I hope that some of these names are unknown to you because there's so many people doing interesting work that's outside of our purview. And that's what we try to bring together. This year we've added an extraordinary education component at the front end, community events both front and back, loads and loads of things. There's exhibitions on all the artists. I've also put a group of 3 photo book exhibitions together. It's in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is just past, if you take a soft right after DC, you'll be there in Charlottesville. I've been riding the train back and forth and love it from here. So it's amazing, completely on foot festival. Everything's in walking distance. So you'll be walking down the street and have a chance to talk to amazing artists and curators and gallery owners and people you've known of for a long time, but everybody's on foot and talking to each other. It's great. So on my website, I keep a lot of things up to date and a lot more for you to learn. This is the book that Deb was talking about in the beginning that was updated just over a year ago, 2 years ago now, called Publisher Photography Book. It brings it up to the digital world and something we're super proud of. This is the book that I'm going to finish this summer called Finding Your Audience, of which this was chapter 5. I'm loving that I'm sort of able to give these talks and hear from you what questions you have, and I can make it better. And I thank you so much for bringing me both B&H and Canon as well. So I hope it was interesting. Thank you.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.